Finally, in spring 1997, we assembled the results of our investigations and interviews into a report, Europe Inc. We scheduled the book launch for the big EU summit in Amsterdam. All the media would be there. We were excited. We had prepared the book launch, and half an hour before, our first friends started arriving.
But very little or no press showed up.
So unfortunately, our first public event was really not noticed by the public.
We have just concluded the most ambitious market opening and rule-making exercise, the strengthening of the rules-based system of multilateral trade. And perhaps most important, the establishment of a stronger and more broadly based World Trade Organization.
I started to work on the financial services GATT negotiations. And that was really a time where I discovered this is really interesting and really like to do that.
We've come to the end of the most far-reaching trade negotiation ever. You, the negotiators of the 117 governments involved, have achieved an extraordinary success. With your approval, therefore, I gavel the Uruguay round as concluded.
The internal market of the European Union was becoming a very important market, rich market, with a high GDP per capita, and that when the European Union was going outside and negotiate as a bloc, they had a real power because they was the biggest exporter, the biggest importer, the biggest foreign investor. But Sir Leon Brittan, the Trade Commissioner of the European Union, was complaining that every time he was going to negotiate with the United States, in front of him he will see his counterpart.
Now, I hear you have your office in a garden out here.
All sorts of things.
And on his back, he will have CEOs of big banks or big insurance companies telling, please do that for me, please do that for us. But when Sir Leon Brittan was turning his back to see where the support was, he was actually having only some ministers saying, don't do this, don't do that, and please do that only, but not more. And he was really not very happy. We discovered that there is a whole world of lobbyists in Washington to tell their government what they want in the trade negotiation. And we thought, this is the way we have to go. We have to do something like that. The European institution is asking for it. The European institution cannot only rely on the information given by the member state and the expert in the finance ministries, but they need to get the information directly from the banks and the insurance companies.
Grazie, signor Commissario.
So then at a point in time, European Trade Commissioner Sir Leon Brittan decided, okay, those associations are not really serious about this issue. I am going to invite for dinner 40 CEOs of the major services companies in Europe. So it's about big banks, big telecom, big insurance, big distribution services, big transport services, big tourism companies. When you take all the different sectors, it is actually making about 70% of the GDP in Europe. So he invited a bunch of 40 of those. After the dinner, he said, well, now that you've got some food by the Commission, you owe me something. You have to do something for me.
People sometimes think that the Commission comes up with ideas out of the blue and then pushes them. It's not so at all. The Commission is thirsty for ideas from the economic actors to help us to decide what to put forward, which is in the interests of Europe.
This is where the idea of creating a network of association and companies pushing for the trade in services views by the private sector came up. I became managing director of the European Services Forum.
So, let me shake your hands. I'm really sorry.
In January 1999, we had 11 months to prepare Seattle, first WTO ministerial conference after the creation of this organization in 1994. And the idea was that this meeting is going to launch the Millennium Round that Sir Leon Brittan had so much pushed for.
Okay, let's go.
Sir Leon Brittan never got to Seattle. The entire commission had to resign because of the massive fraud several commissioners were involved in. And in Seattle, the Millennium Round itself took a completely unexpected turn.
I was based in the Hilton Hotel, and the conference was in the Sheraton, 500 meters away. And I have not been allowed to go out of the hotel because there was one protester blocking the door by lying on the ground. And it was a police officer beside him. And I asked him, can I go outside, please? I would like to go and do my job. I was going to assist to the launch of the Seattle Round so that we will enter into a new phase of negotiation for liberalization of the services. I remember that Commissioner Lamy has been blocked. I mean, he has been able to enter his car, but the car couldn't move because of those people there, just there. And no policeman said, please go away in 5 meters so that the high VIP here can do his job. Many NGOs say that ESF is a secret organization having secret meetings with the European Commission, although everything is on our website. I mean, I am doing my job by contacting the Commission officials responsible for my file. If anybody else would like to do the same, their phone number is on the website. I'm just doing my job, and I don't have anything specific. But if the Commission has some relationship with ESF, it is because the Commission is willing to get some information from the services sectors before negotiating on their behalf, because this is what we're talking about. Trade is done by companies, not by NGOs.
This is the annual dinner of the Friends of Europe, which is really a very big Brussels organisation. There are lots and lots of people from different countries, different jobs, different walks of life, but who are all interested in how can Europe develop, how can we put right the things that are wrong, and how can we build on what we've already done. And we call it a think tank.
Think tanks in Brussels are filling a part of the vacuum that exists at the EU level, that there's no European public debate. So the think tanks step into that vacuum, and they are the forums in which something like a debate happens inside the Brussels bubble.
There are national politicians, there are European politicians, there are civil servants, and the dreaded Eurocrats are here. There are diplomats, there are businessmen, there are professors from universities, all sorts of people. One thing about Brussels is it's a bit like a village. Everybody talks to one another. When I worked at the ERT, part of my job was to keep into contact.
Think tanks are not themselves lobbyists, but they are part of the landscape of lobbying because companies use them to transmit their demands and their perspectives. And all of these are heavily dependent on industry funding.
Several people are sponsoring it. Microsoft is one of them. American business is present in Europe. Microsoft is one of them. Why not?
We have had think tanks in Brussels that were directly funded by the oil industry and that were working to sort out about whether there is such a thing as climate change and whether it's important for governments to act to reduce CO2 emissions.
You can set up research institutes to provide you with research that kind of strengthens your position. You can launch massive PR campaigns and flood the media with your information.
What also happens is setting up fake NGOs, as happened in the big battle about the software patents law. Suddenly there were these advertisements from an NGO that said it was representing small and medium-sized companies, but the financial backers of this NGO were Microsoft and SAP.
In the end, it's all about money. In democracy, it's one person, one vote, but in the Brussels business, it's €1, one vote. The problem is we don't know about the money behind politics. We don't know how much is being spent on lobbying, by whom, and on which issues.
We need to get this under democratic control. It has to be made visible what the role is of lobbying in EU decision-making. What is the role of a large company like Monsanto or Shell?